So this is Baruch Fleischman here at the Tikkun Elevator Kollel, and we're reading this book, which is a compendium of some tremendous, tremendous things. It's written by Rabbi Yaakov Kronenberg, who says he's not a rabbi, but I'll call him a rabbi anyway because he's a tremendous scholar. He doesn't, as he says, he doesn't answer questions about halacha. That's not his area. He is an astrologer. So I found that when I was learning with him, he's a really, really easy person, very slow and methodical in the way that he talks, very smooth also. And his birthday, his solar birthday is one day different from mine. So like us, we're kind of sort of like paired in that way that we get along easily. Uh, he has some great ideas in this book, but his orientation and mine are different. I was originally, when I became religious, I'm about tshuva. So was he. So when I was about tshuva, I had been previously was a doctoral student in counseling psychology at the University of Massachusetts, a very free roaming program. And working on my dissertation, I found Torah. So, and I realized that this is where I wanted to be, to make the main work of my life, getting close to God through this way. So that's the idea of about tshuva. I see that in astrology, the astrology that Yaakov Kronenberg, and this is a disclaimer that I'm making on my own part, doesn't deal so much with the mythos of astrology, because the astrology really follows the mythos of the seven planets. So the seven planets could very easily be seen in Kabbalah as Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferes, Netzach, and Yesod, and then with a Malchus on the bottom, which would be us, or it. I don't know exactly how to touch that up, but you see that the mythos also very strongly represented in astrology. Now that so therefore that's what I was interested in. For example, that if a person I think that I'm an Aquarius. So what he calls an Aquarius, it maybe not what I was born in May. That's the sun is in Taurus, but he calls this I'm Aquarius because of where the my birth time, and it goes according to the ascendant at the moment that you're born. So there is a very different approach, and he's going to say that. So, but once you see that what they're starting to do is they're starting to work on what you call time. That is, the counts of what's going actually on in the universe in which we live. So, a very obvious one is that the world is revolving, and it's going in every 24 hours. It approximately goes 1,000 miles. So this movement is calculatable, just like the movement of the moon and the movement of the sun and the movement of the planets around the sun. All of these things are calculatable. And in astrological terms, they bring about different middos. So from this, Kronenberg and the group that he represents are able to make predictions about what is happening in your life with this concept. And we'll get into it now. But I have to say this before I start because I have a bias in the nature of wanting to look at everything in a psychological context. They're looking at it in terms of where you are. And so, first, tomorrow, I'm going to, let's say, for example, I'm going to have to go to an examination. Is that a good time or not a bad time? Now, I personally don't think this is the way to conduct a life. But on the other hand, when you start listening to this, and maybe I need to learn it more, then you could see more of the different particles of reality that are revolving around us all the time. So with that little introduction, which I felt like I had to say, let me go over here and read this first part. This paragraph, there's a paragraph coming up here. Let me see if I can get down low enough so we can see it easily. And then it says right this. It is written in the Psalms, and this is actually the beginning of the letter of Rabbi Hia. It says like this. It's written, turn away from evil and do good in your business dealings and in the works of your hands. Seek peace and run after it in your own interpersonal relationships. Another explanation, turn away from evil and do good. If your desires turn to that which wisdom and understanding consider undesirable, turn away from evil desire and accept the advice of good wisdom. Now, that's an introduction. So let's go and read what Rabbi Kronenberg has to say here. He says, with respect to the phrase seek peace and run after it, If you see your friend receiving improper advice, seek peace and run after it, and warn him as if you were seeking and running after the peace of your own soul. An example of this is if you are preparing to go on a journey, and a wise man, one of your friends, says, don't start that journey at that hour because it is dangerous, whether because it is an even hour or the hour of Saturn, or he says, so he brings in this concept. There's a concept here called odd and even hours. And there's a concept of a particular planet, which all of the planets, the seven Kokve Lechet, that's what the Zohar, the Talmud refers to them as the seven planets of our solar system, of Saturn, are the hour of Mars, for example, is the god of war. I would say to you, don't start out on this day because the planets are unfavorable for your journey. He'd be considered, so he said, this would consider what he says and don't, so he said, be concerned with what he says and don't start out on the journey. Similarly, if there will be before you food that you desire to eat and the doctor will say to you, don't eat it because it is bad for people of your age group, say, for example, heed these words, and don't eat. This is the meaning of turn away from evil and do good. Stop the evil, that is something that will lead you into bad consequences, and take the good advice. Seek peace and run after it. If you see your friend starting a journey or beginning a task on an even hour, so he says that this is a whole idea here. He says, which is dangerous, or on a day on which the planetary forces are unfavorable for that task. Warn him against starting out on the journey or for beginning the task. And he says, and you will have filled, seek peace of your friend and run after his good. For men of understanding, it is proper to guard themselves from all danger and be cautious and not begin work at an improper hour on a day that is astrologically unfavorable. And just like it is proper for them to be cautious and guard themselves, so it is proper for them to caution and warn their friends. So that's the first part of what I'm going to do over here with Rabbi Kronenberg here. Now, what did he say? He said a lot of different things, and he told you basically that by understanding what is going on in the cycles of the planets, that actually you can understand the favorability of different actions that you can do. And like I said, I don't ascribe myself personally to this approach because I really think mostly that we should be involved in prayer and different kinds of things, according to Breslin, different kinds of ways that I think about the world. But here he's telling you that there's actual facts here. That the facts are that the hours change, and as the hours change and the moments change, everything changes along with it. And everybody's been in a situation which should be good, but it works out bad, or it should be bad, it works out good. So he says this has to do with a concept called planetary influences, and I'll just give you a brief understanding of what I understand it to be. There's two different ways that the Ari describes how eternity manifests itself on us. One is from the inside out, like we have a neshama within us, which is a chelek from God himself. So this is our job, and we're listening to Rabbi Memran. We're trying to cling to that, to get closer to that panemius. But there's another way, completely different way, which the really doesn't deal with very much. It's from the outside in, because not only is Hashem within it, but he is the creator of the system of cycles which causes the world to turn, it causes the planets to be moving around us, and all the different motions of the heavens. All of that is set before the creation of the heavens, and it ultimately has a flow pattern from the Ein Sof Baruch Hu on the outside of both outside of this little test tube in which we live, setting all of the different cycles, because this is a world now called the world of Asiya, is called the world of wheels. And he says all of the cycles of the universe are going around this way, and it is possible to learn those cycles. If you should be zeicha to run into somebody who actually understands those cycles, it could be very helpful to you in a lot of different ways. This is Baruch Fleischman of the Tikkun Elevator Kollel, and this has been Astrology with Rabbi Yaakov Kronenberg.